It's time now for the Premier Podcast, the official real estate video podcast of Premier Realty Group of West Tennessee. We have 3 offices to serve you in McKenzie, Paris, and Huntingdon. Online at prealtygroup.com. Now, let's get started with today's Premier Podcast.
Welcome to the Premier Realty Group video podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Green, the marketing director for Premier Realty Group of West Tennessee. We have offices in Huntingdon, Paris, and McKenzie. My co-host, as always, is the principal broker in the Paris office, Gary Wicker. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Kelly. Good morning.
Let's talk bugs today. You want to?
Hey, I'm all about it.
We've never talked bugs.
We haven't.
More specifically, termites.
There you go.
And we've got the man with the plan who knows all about it, Brent Hedge. He's the owner of Pest Stop with locations in Camden and Waverly and covering all of West Tennessee online at peststoptn.com. Brent, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good today. Thanks, Kelly.
Are we right in the middle of bug season? It's hotter than homemade sin. It's hotter than blazes out there. This has got to be bug season.
It is. It sure is. Well, I say bug season is from March 1st to Halloween, so we are right in the middle of it.
So you guys are always busy then,
We
aren't
are.
you?
We sure are. We've been awfully fortunate. A lot of good customers in Middle and West Tennessee.
How big of a problem are termites here in West Tennessee?
Well, it's our number one pest. It's about 50% of our business.
Yeah.
The experts say that there are about 30 colonies on every acre of ground. So when you think about that, you think about how do you ever keep them out of a house? But
Right.
we've been pretty fortunate being able to do that for about 33 years.
Yeah, let's talk about keeping them out of houses. Is it one treatment and you're done, or is it kind of a treatment over the lifetime of the home?
Well, typically you'll do an initial treatment on the house if it's never been treated, and that is just a range between $400 and $800 will treat most houses, and that's more chemical. That's a bigger amount of volume of chemical, and the warranty goes year to year. Then we offer a annual inspection, termite renewal. We come out once a year. We go under the house, whether it's a crawl space or a basement, or if it's a slab, of course, then we'll go in it, and then we also do a courtesy spray underneath and around the outside. The state doesn't require us to do that. They require us, if we have a termite contract, to check it at least annually, but we do that courtesy spray once a year. Yes, sir.
I always like those worst case scenario horror stories. What's the worst case of termites you've ever seen in your career?
I looked at one in New Johnsonville last year that you could actually break the joist with your hand, and I mean that's
gosh.
I mean you see that quite often in a spot or two, but this one in about, I'd say 30% of the house, you could break all the joists with your hand.
Wow.
They had been in it pretty for a long time.
Yeah. Now, some people think they have a termite plan when they actually have a pest control plan. They're two very different things. Kind of define and explain those two things.
Sure, and that's pretty typical of most companies around here. They'll have a general pest control plan that's either monthly or quarterly. Most residential houses, people do it quarterly. We come out every 3 months. We spray inside the house, around the windows and doors, and the perimeter on the outside. And let's say we do that 4 times a year, and then if they see any insect between times, then we'll come back and do a respray. But that's crawling insects. That's ants, roaches, fleas, ticks. That's not termites. And especially like a crawl space, now if we were doing a basement, you would hope that my pest control technicians would see signs of termites and let the homeowner know. Mm-hmm. But if it's a crawl space house, which most of them are around here, you wouldn't be getting anything really as far as termites go with a general pest control contract.
So you might need to double check your plan. If you think you have a termite plan, you may just have a pest control plan.
That's right. That's exactly. We get confusion both ways. And of course, we'd be happy. We wished all of our customers had both.
Right.
But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to call your company and say, hey, what do I have? And most people know, but we do have some confusion on that. And then, like I say, the termite is once a year, and that's an inspection of the foundation underneath. And then like I say, we do a courtesy spray around the outside.
Gotcha. What bug would be the biggest pest, so to speak? We're talking to Brent Hedge from Pest Stop. The biggest pest, the one that absolutely gives you the most fits, that's hard to get rid of?
Well, termites is the hardest.
Is that the hardest?
I mean, they're in the ground, and
Yeah.
they could be 30 feet in the ground and 100 feet away from your house. So sometimes, and you wouldn't think about it, but on the average inspection, we can only see about 30% of the house. It's the rest of it is inside walls, covered with insulation, covered with brick. So it is the hardest one to control. And I mean, and And again, you've got a pest that's causing damage to your house. So you've got a lot of folks that are more concerned about that than, they're concerned about ants and roaches and stuff, but they don't want their house falling in.
Yeah, right. From a real estate standpoint, and I'm not the real estate expert, you're the real estate broker.
Right.
Is a termite inspection part of the required documentation?
It is part of the required documentation. We give the buyer the option to have the inspection or to waive the inspection. Now, there are certain loan types that require inspection, and when you have those that require it, it's just necessary that it's done. We suggest that because of the nature of West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee as well, we advise everybody to go out and get that termite clearance letter is actually what it's called, and have that done prior to closing.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk specifically about chemicals used. Are they, I'm sure they're 100% safe. Are they safe for pets? Obviously they're safe for people, but talk specifically about chemicals that go into that.
Well, the termiticide obviously is more persistent, and you put it into the ground, either inject it or sometimes you have to trench it and pump it in, or take a rod and rod it in. Depending on the foundation type, we may drill the foundation and pump the chemical into the foundation. It typically will last, and this is a big range, but from 5 to 20 years. So it's more persistent, and it has to stick. It has to dry, come in contact with the soil and dry, and then it will stay there. And you ask about safety. I'm really dodging the question. I'm not dodging it, but of course, everything we use is EPA approved,
right.
And it is, and the chemical companies do a pretty good job. They engineer it to be safer for mammals. So your cats, your dogs, your family, and you can't ever really use the word completely safe because it does kill things. It kills insects, but biologically we're a lot different from an insect.
Right.
So we try to use this. We use one chemical called Premise, and one reason we use it is because it is, in my opinion, it's the most environmentally safe termiticide that there is, and we've had extremely good luck with it too. If you don't have good control, you want it to be, obviously safety is number one because you don't want to bother any of your customers or pets, but it's got to be effective too. Now, almost every chemical is toxic to birds and fish, and so that's where and of course we can't treat a koi pond or right next to a stream. There are different chemicals, different regulations, but birds and fish, we're always I'll try to be aware of that. But
so if you got termites in your aquarium, you're in big trouble.
You are in trouble. You really are. You really are.
You got major problems.
That's right.
We had a problem with ants this summer. Is that just on my end, leaving too much food out?
That's the next. As far as calls, as far as number of calls, we get nearly as many calls for ants as we do termites.
Really?
But economically, it's nice because the charge for ants is not as much as the charge for termites. But yeah, we get a lot of calls for ants, and this year's been a perfect year for ants. It's been a little bit cooler than average and a lot more rain. And so it's been a big ant year. It sure has.
Do you ever get strange calls? I'm sure you get snakes, raccoons, possums. Do you ever get anything crazy? Do you?
Yeah, bees. I got bees. I actually took care of some bees for Gary last year. Of course, honeybees, that's a touchy subject, and we try to never, kill them if we don't have to. But if they're in somebody's house and you can't get them out, if they're in like a brick wall or a block wall, there's no way to get them out. You have to.
Yeah.
But I actually moved a colony this year. One of my neighbors had one in their front yard, and I had a hive, and so I cut it down and put it in the hive. Is at my parents' house right now.
No kidding.
And I have a couple of beekeepers that I call and try to get them to come move them as the first line on bees. But yeah, we get all kinds of strange things. Yeah,
I'll bet.
It's pretty interesting.
We've got wicker furniture on our front porch. And
thank you, Kelly.
Not Gary Wicker furniture, just wicker furniture. And the wasps have invaded the arms on the chairs and the couch. So if you tap on the arm of the couch, zzz,
yeah.
And we don't know what to do. We've been spraying the arms, but what else can you do?
Well, you ought to be able to get it. You probably from underneath maybe.
Somehow like
that?
Yeah,
some kind of aerosol. We use a lot of aerosol for ants. We've got a backpack fogger that it's like a giant leaf blower with a tank on it.
Oh, wow.
And we use that outside a lot for flying insects. It's effective on the outside of buildings, like for wasp and ladybugs and stuff like that. And it's also very effective in your yard for mosquitoes. That's a growing part for us. We've really just been doing it 3 or 4 years, but it's extremely effective in your yard for mosquitoes.
Oh, I didn't even know you could treat for those. That's good to know, because that becomes a big problem this time of year.
See, pest control is really pest control.
It is.
It's a big. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and you know, you think when I bought those backpack foggers, I thought, oh, that'll never work, but I bought it, and now I've got 7 of them. So I mean, it's, you know, I guess like every other business, it's always changing, you know. And it is very interesting. I've really enjoyed doing it.
Gotcha. We're talking to Brent Hedge. He is the owner of Pest Stop in Camden and Waverly, covering all of West Tennessee, online at peststoptn.com. Any other questions for Brent? We've covered a lot of ground quickly, but I'm sure we're overlooking
Right,
some
yeah,
things.
and we've kicked a couple of things around foundation. So let's talk about foundations. You know, we see mostly here, you mentioned a while ago, crawl spaces in this area. If you've got an existing house and it's either on a crawl space or a slab, I'm sure those are treated differently.
That's right, yes. Well, of course, first thing, inspection to see if there is a problem, and of course you want to take extra precautions if you do have a problem. But we treat the perimeter of all houses, of course, so that way a slab and a crawl space would be the same. Of course, years ago, you drilled every slab. We would go inside the house and drill every interior wall and pump that under the slab. And, of course, a lot of times, you know, you did a lot of damage to the tile and carpet and everything else. Now, most of the time we do, it's called EPLI. It's limited interior treatment, and you treat mostly on the outside, and we only spot treat on the inside. But if it's a slab, and they're coming up through the floor in the middle, you have to treat that slab, and sometimes that's extremely difficult to find, because your floor covering is covering a crack in the floor, and because they're tough, but they're not super. They can't come through the slab unless there's a crack.
Right.
So there's a crack there somewhere, and you've got to treat that.
Right.
With a crawl space, you're going to go under and you're going to treat anything touching the ground. So like piers around plumbing, you're going to treat all the way around that, and then around the inside, and then around the outside of the house to keep them from coming up from underneath.
Right. All right, let's move to new construction. You've got brand new construction, foundation there, crawl space or slab. You're treating those differently?
We do, and there's 2 or 3 different ways to go about that. We've got one contractor in town, and we do a bore care treatment, which is when he gets the house in the dry, we go inside and we treat all the wood, the stud walls, the plywood, the seal at the bottom. We go underneath and treat the joist. If it's a crawl space, of course, if it's slab, there will be no underneath to go to. Treat that, and that's a one-time. You're done. You don't have to come back and treat any of the slabs. The traditional way, the way we do most of them, of course, you can do once the crawl space is done, you can treat it about any time. But all the slabs will come out and like spray under the porch slab, spray under the garage slab, or if it's a basement slab. But because you want that chemical under that slab, because it'll last a lot longer where the sun and the rain can't get to it.
Gotcha.
So that's it. So a lot of times on a new construction, it'll be 3 or 4 trips, and then when they get all their dirt work done on the outside, we come back and treat that new soil too. So, but that's the best way to do it. It's not biologically, it's not that way, but it seems like it's like a vaccination. If you can get that chemical there on the front end before you have any chance of trouble, it really goes well.
If you're not treating your home for termites, you're really running a risk, aren't you?
The average house in Tennessee, if it's not treated, they'll get in it within 7 years.
Oh boy,
that's quick.
So,
that's rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You know, and of course we deal mostly with existing homes in real estate. You know, there are a few builders out there that we work with, but for the most part, we deal with existing homes. And we talked a little bit about clearance letters previously. A couple of things on that. If you've got a home that's under contract, more than likely when they come out, your clearance letter is pretty much going to be clear, or there's been some other problems there as well. But if you've got one that hadn't been treated, you know, you still got to get that clearance letter on the thing. And if they come out and they find something, you know, so our suggestion to folks is, you know, if you're there, this is, you know, if you've got an existing house and you don't have a termite contract, go get one with somebody, especially if you're thinking about putting your house on the market. Second thing is, you know, if you're buying, you want to go in and have that checked. And you can always, if somebody's got an existing contract, you can always pick up that contract. You want to talk a little bit about that?
That's right. Most of the time, you know, most companies will extend it to the new buyer. I mean, most companies are looking for customers, you know, and they'll offer it when it's sold. They'll continue it, you know, keep checking it. And he's right about the clearance letters. I mean, most loan companies are going to require it. So if you're thinking about selling, you might as well get that in the back of your mind. And we do those all the time. It's the NPMA 33, National Pest Control Association came up with it years ago, and I've got one right here. We do one nearly every day, thank goodness. I mean, we've been awfully fortunate. And it basically tells you there's wood-destroying insects in the house, or there's not, or there's sign of wood-destroying insects, and of course, worst-case scenario, if there is damage there, and then recommendations whether to treat it or not. And it's good for 90 days. Some loan companies will only take it if it's within 30 days. So we recommend that you get a closing date, and then when you get a closing date, we'll be glad to come out and do it and get you fixed up on it.
Can you see a termite with the naked eye or no?
Sure. Yeah. They're about a quarter-inch long. Yes, sir.
Oh, they're that big? Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Sure.
What's the best way to get in touch with Pest Stop? Is there a toll-free number?
Sure, 800-872-3610. We have a Paris number, 642-9431. We have a Camden number, 584-3838. Huntingdon number, 986-9614. And a Waverly number, which is 931-296-7378.
Gotcha. They're covering all of West Tennessee and online at peststoptn.com. Brent Hedge with Pest Stop. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.